was an island. The land provided its people with food and shelter, and the way they lived was limited by what they could do with their own hands. Houses were made of the same material as the ground on which they stood, or the trees that surrounded them, and each region developed a style of its own. Towns grew and developed, set in the countryside, like this pleasant prospect of Birmingham. There followed a period of more sophisticated and planned development of the countryside, with cities which vied with one another as fine and beautiful places, such as Cambridge and Bath. With the Industrial Revolution, towns grew piecemeal. Man's power of destruction of the countryside increased 100-fold, and little thought was given to maintaining the natural beauty of his surroundings. The drabness and smoke and grime of the industrial areas was with us. But skies are clearing today in many places as new concepts of planning are changing our ideas. These are to provide a pleasant environment for the growing population, to deal with the motor car, and to introduce a sense of nature and the country into the town, to provide a contact with nature which is needed more than ever in this machine age. Cumbernauld is one of 20 new towns being built to ease congestion in the big cities of Britain. With today's methods, the face of the country can be changed very rapidly, for better or for worse. So much more attention must be paid to the natural characteristics and contours of the land, to the grouping and interaction of buildings, and to the planning of varying street patterns and vistas. We must make the best use of open space in the arrangement of gardens and greens, as well as in the provision of parks and playing fields. Here in Cumbernauld, awareness of the country is being brought back into the town. Let's look at some of the developments of the last 10 years so that we can judge for ourselves how successful they are. Cumbernauld is being built round a hilltop, a compact town for about 70,000 people, with the centre on the crest of the ridge. Here, a multi-deck shopping centre stands astride a wide main road, which passes right beneath it, and throughout the town, traffic is quite separate from people. The proper use of space and of landscape in these towns is an important aspect of planning. And this is where the landscape architect comes into his own, one who has studied and understands the important relationships in the design of space. Cumbernauld starts from scratch, but many new towns have been developed from a small existing nucleus. At Crawley in Sussex, the high street of this old coaching town has been incorporated into the new plan. From the high street, a walk through an arcade leads one dramatically into the new town centre, Queen's Square, with broad pavements and modern buildings, trees, and a fountain. The design of space in stone with hard surfaces for hard wear. But to bring the countryside right into the town is a problem which is being tackled in various ways. At Stevenage, the first and most publicised town, areas of farmland have been left which divide the town into a number of residential districts, each complete with their own shops and schools. At the centre of the road system is the new town square. Stevenage has been planned with large buildings in the centre, estates grouped round this, and with existing woodland preserved wherever possible. These green spaces separate the houses from the industrial area to keep them apart, but not so far apart as to make long journeys to work necessary. Between the different neighbourhoods at Stevenage, linking them with one another and with the industrial area and town centre, is a well-planned road system with cycleways and pedestrian walks. Wide grass areas and trees insulate houses from main roads, and the cycleway system makes for safe and speedy travel. Footpaths have been designed so that the shortest route from houses to school and shops are away from traffic, among grass and flowering shrubs. Former lanes have been paved to make pleasant walks. This old field boundary with hedgerow trees is being made into a footpath. It now looks like this. These houses in a two-long terrace were built along a main road, happily changed in later developments, where houses are set at different angles and trees have been retained in the layout. Here, another hedgerow has been left among houses, adding character to bricks and mortar. And these houses are designed around pleasant courts with grass and trees. The old tree pattern has been retained here as well. Large trees add to the pleasure of the scene and help to marry the new buildings into the landscape. Enclosed courts like this one have been constructed round existing trees and bushes on the site and have been gently landscaped to break the straight lines of this rectangular space. In the centre is a garden and a play space for children. Areas near trees quickly become worn by children playing round them. At Crawley, bricks and granite sets have been used to protect the base of trees. These forms are pleasing to children and soon become well polished by 1,000 trouser seats. Large trees can today be planted to help make an attractive setting almost immediately, and sometimes larger than these. Trees planted in groups along bypasses and industrial roads act as a baffle against noise, and when fully grown, help to join together again a landscape which has been cut through by the road. Groups of trees have been planted at this corner and should look like this when grown. And these trees will screen the backs of the houses on either side. Smaller areas in front of houses where maintenance is a problem can be covered with spreading shrubs, which together with the use of hard surfaces of varying textures gives a pleasing and hard-wearing finish. In Britain, the climate is inclined to be wet and windy, and the design of large spaces today must take into account the comfort of town dwellers. Rain falling on this square at Crawley finds its way to the trees through underground irrigation channels. Covered ways protect people from the weather. This path to the town centre could be covered, like the old Victorian shopping arcades, this one's in Birmingham, where, in contrast to Stevenage and Crawley, an old city is being replanned. Demolition is changing the face of the city. New space is being created and an overall design being planned to bring a new look to the city centre. This is the Smallbrook development. From the covered shopping centre, we can look out over grass areas which provide welcome relief from the large scale of the buildings which will eventually surround it, and also from the busy traffic. The traffic circles the many open spaces where a market is held on fine days. High above, the traffic roars on, while people move around in comfort, and the traditional market adds bustle and life to the scene.
Hard-wearing clothes on a pad. It's a beautifully engineered job, ladies and gentlemen. I am not asking 25 shillings, I am not asking £1, I am not asking...
In other parts of the city, slum areas are being rebuilt. This is a spacious design for the old people, with flats and bungalows surrounded by lawns and existing trees. The use of space for good effect. Landscaping is being carried out around this new housing area nearby, where grass is now being laid. All trees are protected. They can be felled in a day, but they take many, many years to grow. A busy town centre needs a breathing space. This is 200 yards from Crawley Centre. At Stevenage, the park is just behind the shopping centre, with a stretch of water designed round an old drainage system. Sports fields are today an accepted part of every neighbourhood, and each has its school playing fields. Here, grass areas between houses have been laid out as playing areas. And now let's look at the town centres. At Stevenage, transport can come right alongside the square and car parking is nearby. This was the first all-pedestrian area in Britain, a central square round which are grouped the civic buildings, principal stores, banks and post office. A grove of birch trees has been left in position and provides shade near the clock tower and the fountain, which are the focal points of the square. Everything was specially designed. Seats and bicycle stands are simple and functional. Covered walks give shelter from bad weather and for waiting dogs. Car parks for 3,000 cars are beside the centre, and not far away are the church, park and places for recreation and entertainment. In Crawley Town Square, a bandstand and a fountain make pleasant features. There's always life and movement in the square and around the shops. The bandstand, rescued from Gatwick Racecourse, is used for music and entertainment in summer. Seats are provided in areas sheltered by trees, and the flower containers are kept bright with flowers for as long as possible. The main streets with their covered pavements have flower beds here and there to add a touch of colour. This is a smaller neighbourhood shopping centre laid out on an enclosed plan. Shops sheltered under an arcade. There are no traffic problems here, and while mother shops, the children can happily explore the play sculptures. Here's another play place by a block of flats. Children are soon on good terms with the animals. The rebuilding of Coventry City Centre is now very well known. The centre has been redeveloped from the maze of streets around Broadgate. And a green traffic island, with the statue of Lady Godiva, stands by the entrance to the new shopping centre on the left. The shopping precincts of Coventry are the pride of the city. They are orientated on the spire of St. Michael's, the old cathedral, which is the visual centrepiece of the new city. The shops on split levels are connected by ramps and staircases, and they're all sheltered from the rain. Canopies make it easy to cross from one side to the other without getting wet. Flowers and shrubs and trees make this a very pleasant spot. The cathedral ruins have been left as an open space, paved to make a court before the entrance to the new cathedral. Its great entrance, fine stained glass windows and chapels make the most of modern design. The main stairway frames the spire of the old cathedral, and all space has been well used. One wall is almost entirely glass, engraved with figures in which the ruins of the old cathedral are reflected. Plymouth, too, is another city which is rebuilding itself. And here, there's more opportunity to bring the countryside into the town. Two cross routes cut through the once crowded centre of the old city. Royal Parade from east to west, and Armada Way from north to south. Here, trees and grass areas lead down from the centre towards historic Plymouth Hoe. Where the roads cross, trees and water make a central city park in front of the civic offices. Nearby are the law courts, guild hall, and municipal buildings. This is a fine example of bold planning. The planning of landscape in cities is one of the least understood aspects of urban design, and the experiments we have seen so far offer a number of solutions to the problem of planning the cities of Britain to make better places in which to live. In the design of towns and landscaping and the overall planning of space, the continuing character of the landscape will depend to a great degree on its future care and maintenance. This must have been foreseen in the original plan, in the construction of the new highways and motorways, in the development of streets and squares, in the design of housing estates and flats, and in the laying out of parks and sports grounds. A little extra money spent during construction will often mean a considerable saving later on. It can also make maintenance work much easier. Perhaps it would save the clutter on this piece of grass. And obviously, when planning for grass spaces, the mower should be taken into account. Verges today can be quickly filled with poles and trees. Concrete posts peep from the undergrowth. Trees and posts make cutting difficult. Drains pop up unexpectedly, and hydrants brighten the scene. Posts like this look rather forlorn. Grass grows everywhere. There are many obstacles to maintenance. Steps like these get rather untidy, but narrow edges help in cutting. A wide edge would make it easier, as wide as this, just below grass level. This is hard to keep cut. This is much better. An answer to this is the mowing strip, a strip of concrete by railings along flower beds to make maintenance easier. And similarly with road signs, a base to cut around. And bus stop posts set in concrete, but even then the grass comes through. Manhole covers and similar hazards can easily be laid at the correct height. This is too high. Just right and easy to cut across. These projecting windows make cutting underneath difficult. GPO and hydrant stones can always be placed against a wall. Telephone and junction boxes tucked away. Bare patches from car parking are a great problem. Notices don't help. And paths get worn across corners. This one is now paved, and long thorned roses planted round the grass will stop further shortcuts. This is another way to protect a corner. In completing paths and roadways, A high curb can cause damage to expensive machines. A run-on helps considerably. Trees on road verges need some thought in placing. In this case, the mower can cut in one run on either side. Here there's plenty of room for maneuvering, and here too. This uneven result could be cured by the use of hard bases. Slopes, if they're meant to be cut, should not be more than 1 in 3. Steeper slopes often erode. Shrubs begin by being ornamental, but these will grow 12 feet high and 6 feet across and will be very difficult to cut around. And in our well-kept parks, circular beds help to make mowing easier. This edge is concave. Small, odd-shaped beds make work difficult. Here, the shapes have been carefully worked out for an easy run with a mower. And what about motorways? These slopes are obviously too steep to keep tidy. 1 in 3 is about the maximum. This is easier to mow, but not if drainage channels are too prominent. This bank is too steep to cut, and the top of it too narrow for a machine. Here's another collection, and some more grass. The central reservation is not easy to keep cut if it's convex-shaped as here. The sides can't be cut at all. Here we can cut over the edge, and there's no central drain to complicate matters. The use of the right machine is very important. Parks departments are well aware of this. Slopes of up to 1 in 3 can be cut here, and smaller areas with this machine. Smaller machines deal with rougher stuff and clean up corners. Small, narrow-width machines keep parks in order, and larger ones can cut bigger acreages. Special mowers for special purposes, such as fine grass on golf and bowling greens. St Andrews knows this. And wide-cutting gang mowers can be used to cut whatever width has been decided is most economical. And with the continued development of highly mobile, faster cutting machines, the proper layout of grass areas is vitally important if maintenance is to be easily done, and the machines are to give the maximum economical performance intended by designers. The universities, technical colleges and parks departments are training the people for the design of landscape and the best use of equipment in times to come. This will result in the disappearance of the rather haphazard growth of the past, to give a variety of scene to make our towns pleasant places in which to live. There should be a variety, yet with an overall unity, conforming to certain principles without becoming monotonous, and planned with a sense of pride, so that people will want to come and look at them. Not a sprawling mass spreading further and further across this green and pleasant land, as has happened in the past. Having seen their cities, said Ulysses, I know their minds.